Ah, Mr. Wick. John Wick, that is. What can I say about what could be the last installment to the franchise? Well, I didn't hate it. A phrase that comes as high praise by today's standards, which the film deserves a fair share. Then there's the other intent behind a phrase like this, which is usually a thinly veiled insult with some garnered criticism behind it, something John Wick 4 has also earned. The franchise as a whole has done a great job lasting this long, and has earned its reputation as some of the best modern action film series. However, after the first movie, things took a steep dive, but at least bounces back for the most part in this, what I hope to be the final John Wick movie. Now, I would like to be clear that John Wick 4 is something to be commended more than condemned above all, especially for keeping its long, one-shot, fast-paced action sequences fresh and managing to up the ante in each segment, with more guns, sword fights, attack dogs, and cars! I am happy to say that the fight scenes are the best since the first John Wick, and easily the second best out of the tetralogy. In addition, it was nice to see another character with intrigue and depth, whose only motivation isn't money, glory, or revenge, because it's none of these things. He only takes orders as a means to protect his daughter. I am talking about the blind assassin known as Mr. Caine. Mr. Caine? Is that supposed to be a joke?
That's amazing. That's like an ice cream man named Cone.
Anyways, when I first saw this character, I was worried that the action scenes were going to have him deflecting bullets with a sword or something ridiculous.
Oh, those bullets are like super fast.
Thankfully, nothing anywhere near that ludicrous happens. At least with him. In fact, the best parts of the movie is where Mr. Caine is involved, as the fighting was really creative and kept me curious of what kind of person he is, and what more his character can bring to this action genre. Considering the after credits scene, then it's safe to assume we are going to get more of this Asian spin-off version of John Wick. Then there's the film's ending. I can see people being split up about this part, but I found it to be a fitting end for the protagonist. Here is a little context in the final act. Mr. Wick challenges the main antagonist, known as the Marquis, to an 18th century style duel, one he can't refuse. I'm skipping over a lot to get to this point, but all you really need to know is there are terms set and agreed upon by both parties, where Mr. Wick is guaranteed freedom from all obligations by the High Table if he is to win. The Marquis arranged for a proxy so as to have Mr. Caine take his place during the duel, by twisting Caine's arm with the threat of death on his daughter if he was to refuse. Long story short, 3 shots later, John Wick is seemingly defeated, which is when the Marquis vainly steps in, pushes Mr. Caine aside to deliver the final blow. However, John, having not fired the bullet from the previous round, uses it to kill the Marquis, reminding the audience of what Mr. Krabs said earlier just before the duel. A man's worth shouldn't exceed his ambition. Great fucking line, by the way. Anyways, with the Marquis now dead, this simultaneously gives both Mr. Wick and Caine the freedom to walk away from the underground societal feudal hierarchy created by the High Table and all its obligations. Although, it is only moments later John Wick dies from his injuries. What can I say? If you're going to treat life like a video game, pick some health up along the way. Now, the reason I like this ending is because it wasn't a bad way to subvert expectations into giving the protagonist a noble ending without some over-the-top final showdown with a lot of explosions. Yes, there's roughly a 20-minute shootout leading up to this moment. Regardless, it's the last 15 minutes that bring a sense of stillness and tranquility to the end. Furthermore, if history of dueling is anything to go by, then we should know that duels in the 18 and early 1900s would commence when 2 or more individuals felt their honor was at stake. Therefore, if someone dies during the duel, their honor remains intact, and given this kind of resolve, the ending of John Wick's character is a graceful exit. This also brings me to what will unfortunately be Lance Reddick's final performance ever. And even though his appearance is brief here, his character is also laid to rest in this film, and hits harder knowing we'll never see this talented thespian in anything new ever again. Rest easy now, Zavala. The Guardians will take over from here. While I'm sure this video is going to be disliked into oblivion for having breathed a single word against John Wick 4, it's still worth talking about the movie's shortcomings. To start, I'll borrow a small portion from the Critical Drinkers review, and I can build on it from there.
Then there's the stupid bulletproof suits that basically turn people into walking battle tanks, able to shrug off everything from small arms fire to high-speed impacts. I'm not kidding, in the course of this single movie, John Wick gets hit by at least 6 cars at high speed, thrown down 222 steps, stabbed multiple times, thrown off a 50-foot ledge onto a concrete floor while hitting a steel girder on the way down, shot 3 times without protection, and has more ammunition hurled at him than the fucking Ukrainian army. And well, it all becomes a little bit much after a while.
I chose to add this because it neatly sums up the movie's biggest problems, and it all becomes a little much is right. I mean, the cars. Let's talk about the cars. Can we talk about the cars? I've been dying to talk about the cars. Why does he get hit by so many cars? The high table should forget sending trained killers, just send a fleet of Mustangs or 18-wheelers to kill John Wick. Well, I would say that, but after seeing him get hit half a dozen times at high speeds without taking any visible damage, there doesn't seem to be any real point. It's like he's a video game character whose health meter wears down after sustaining a bone-breaking or life-threatening injury. I'm sure someone would like to make the argument that Mr. Wick's bulletproof suits protect him from any such injuries. I mean, it's not how body armor works, but let's say it does. Then what about the dog? Oh yes, there's a dog who plays the role of a good boy. But he too gets hurled into an oncoming vehicle's windshield, shattering it, and gets up like nothing happened. It's at this point the movie isn't even following its own rules. You know, something that made the first movie great was consistency and near-flawless action. You believed everything fitted in the range of possibility and that a single person could pull off all these superhuman feats. Add the emotional elements at play of loss, mourning, and retribution for deep injustices, and it makes it a top contender for the best revenge story of our time. One other thing I'll talk about is the German nightclub scene, which takes place during Mr. Wick's side quest to kill the head of the German branch of the High Table, known as Killer Harkin. Wick is quickly met face to face with him and challenged to a card game of life and death. This part is kind of fun to watch, albeit what happens is foreseeable. When all hell breaks loose after Harkin is caught cheating, the real problem is when things escalate to a one-on-one fistfight between John Wick, a highly trained hitman with exceptional knowledge about the human body's pressure points/weak points, along with different types of fighting styles, all this paired against Killer Harkin, a fat German guy. It seems like this diminishes John Wick's character to have one out-of-shape person give him so much trouble during a skirmish, one who already had a bullet lodged into his ass, mind you, even before the fight between them began. It just kind of reminded me of Austin Powers versus Fat Bastard is all. The last problem I'll talk about is also in this scene. As the fight between Mr. Wick and Harkin spills out onto the dance floor, there is a complete absence of panic and confusion from the extras, even from the commotion of gunshots. Everyone in the background just carries on dancing like people aren't dying 8 feet away. It's just such a shame to see such a downgrade in believable background actors as each movie was released. At least it wasn't as retarded as the silencer scene. Everything must come to an end. Even the unkillable John Wick had to die to make way for something new. Though John Wick 4 has its problems, it's still a reliable source of entertainment, and while I won't put it on my shelf like the first, but I'll certainly be rewatching it when it becomes available for streaming, which will likely be somewhere in the fall. In addition, I also look forward to what may or may not come afterwards with Mr. Caine, whose character hopefully wasn't just a fluke in terms of interest and creative choreographed fight sequences. Anyways, that's all I've got for this review. To whom it may concern, thanks for listening.